This is a fun one. If you bought what I bought, you're going to be glad you found this video. I bought a kit, an RV heating kit. A company called Heatso. They're out of England. It's really simple. They buy this thing. Comes in a kind of a kit. This is an Espar. And they add stuff to it for an RV. So they make sure you get this. They make sure you get a hose. They make sure you get an air exchanger. They make sure you get a water heat exchanger. I'm going to talk about all that in a second here for you. They shipped it pretty quick. A couple of parts, probably because of the coronavirus in 2020 here. A couple parts were delayed, but they came. It's finally getting cold. I'm getting into installing this. Today it finally warmed up. But there's a lot to this. It's a lot of stuff. It scared me at first. And then it got into it, and it pissed me off. Pissed me off big time, because it really is confusing. So here's to helping you not get pissed off. There's a lot of things going on. You're dealing with plumbing. You're dealing with electrical. You're dealing with hooking up gas, because it needs fuel. In my case, gas instead of diesel. And then just placing stuff everywhere and layout. Mind-boggling. Let's take one of those at a time for you. Let's take the easiest part. Fuel. Pretty straightforward. It comes with the unit, because I bought the gasoline one. I have the B, stands for the gas version, instead of D for diesel. Comes with that. Comes with pump, line, and fittings and mounts and all that stuff in a bag. By the way, that's what that funny looking rubber thing is in here. When you get your kit, that's to mount the fuel pump. Pretty simple. The instructions on that, when you cut to that part of it, just says, hey, don't mount this too far from your gas tank. Run a long line to your heater instead. Keep this fairly close to the source, like 4 to 5 feet. So mine will be that close. This line is really small. If you really looked at it, it's really, 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 really tiny. There's like no hole there, like whatsoever, which is awesome because it sips fuel. It's great. That's pretty straightforward. From one to the other, that needs a power source. It's got a clip on here. Got to remember to do that. Right? Got to remember to hook that up. Great. I'll do that. I'll hook it up. I'm not going to do it right now in this segment, only because my fuel tank's full. And I just don't want to deal with that extra weight. Get it down there empty. Then I'll do it. Hopefully be soon. All right. Let's jump to the water side of things. The liquid side. Plumbing. There's two things going on in the plumbing side. You're heating a coolant going through this, in, out, one loop. Got to think of it as one end loop. There's all kinds of turns and twists that it can make in that loop, but it ends up through this at one point or another. All right, it has to. You can use antifreeze. You can use glycol. I'm going to use glycol, food grade. So it dumps out, no big deal. If something bad happens, not going to be upset. How does it go through this system? When it turns on, a pump runs it through. This is the pump. Inlet, outlet. It's got arrows on it. It's marked. It's got a mounting bracket. I'm told that that's not like the greatest mounting bracket, but this is not being mounted inside of my vehicle because it's glycol. I don't have to worry about it freezing. Antifreeze. My vehicle is antifreeze. It never freezes. It's antifreeze. Get it? So I'm going to give this bracket a try. It was easy, quick, and simple. It's going to mount up something like that for me. They do tell you the secret to this in the big loop. Don't make it the lowest point because sediment will end up in here. Any particles will end up in this. You don't want it in this. I don't know how it doesn't push through this, but you don't want a lot of it at once, I guess. It can handle a little bit. So make sure you mount it above this at least, and maybe a loop somewhere. One of the hose just loops below it a little bit. I don't know what they mean by that, but that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I know that's got to go in. Where does this go? Do you put this on the inlet side or the outlet side? of that heater. Come to find out, inlet side. You want to push cold liquid in, let it heat up, and come right out through the system. How do you power that? Well, it's going to be on part of the electrical conversation. You come out of, and by the way, it comes with these fittings. You get a T or a straight, whatever you need to. Let me flip this back up so maybe you can see it here. Doesn't want to completely stand up. So we come out of this system, one side's out. This is in, this is out, right? So you can go in, out, I can mix them. You got one straight, one turned. So you come in here, it heats it up, and it comes back out. 20 mil. That's what these fittings all fit. This fits. You can kind of snug it to put it together. Awesome. So I got to go from this to that, and then this comes out and has to go into other stuff. What's that other stuff? That other stuff is things like this if you were to just use it for hot water. If this was strictly going to be a hot water source for you, then your 20 mil pipe would run into this plate heat exchanger. That's what this is. There's a lot going on with this thing. We're going to talk about that too. Now, if you're using it for heat and you buy this kit from Heatso, then you get this. And this has two lines, and they're not 20 mil. This is too big. But they give you a hose in this kit. One of the benefits of buying this kit is that they put everything together. You didn't have to go figure out what you needed and track it down and screw it up. This does fit on there. That works. 16 mil. Heater hose pipe. So if you need more, you can go down to your hardware store and get it. Your automotive supply stores. Well, this is pretty simple. In, out, fan control. All right. My system's a little crazy. I got that. That's what comes with the kit. But this didn't all work for me. I didn't know how to put it together. I was confused. It was driving me nuts. Frustration started. I contacted the company that I bought it from, Heatso, and go, do you have any more documentation? Anything to help? Yeah, we do. Great. They emailed it. They're in England. I got it at 2 a.m. in the morning, and they gave me a diagram. That just basically said, hey, we know how to kind of plumb these two things together, and it was pretty straightforward, and you pick up a few tips and tricks out of that. And then I called them and said, hey, you got anything that shows how to do a radiant heat floor system? Nope. Okay, I'm on my own. Fortunately, YouTube's awesome. And there's a bunch of videos I've watched, so I've educated myself a little bit. And I can't mention everybody, I can't remember everybody that I've watched and picked up little tips and tricks, like, or suggestions, and just, little tidbits. One here, one there, pulled it all together. One of my other problems too is like, oh gosh, this is really more complicated for plumbing. Again, I'm not a plumber, not much of a carpenter really either, but I'm making it work. So I'm going to make this work. And so I have a sink. I need hot and cold water, no problem. And I have a shower, hot and cold water, and it's a recirculating shower. More complicated, but I got that part. Why do I have that part down? Because snow and current. Check them out. YouTube channel, a lot of great technical videos and documentation on what he does with his system and recirculating shower and how it works. I think, recirculating showers are basically still in their infancy. They're still being tested and proven. And I'm going to do my little twist on it because I worked in the water filtration business, and I got a friend who owns a water filtration business. And we're going to put something crazy together. We'll see how that comes out. But I had to draw it up. I had to draw up and see how the plumbing worked. Now, I'll try to enlarge this or zoom in, or I don't know. I'll do some fancy video editing stuff so you guys can see this. It's pretty cool though. It's simple. I divided my van into two parts. So if I was to draw a line right about here, this is the passenger side. This is the top is the driver's side. So I'm sorry, no, passenger side, driver's side. Got it backwards here. Look, I'm looking at the camera and it's backwards to me. I'm just half back. I'm mostly backwards anyway, so we'll go with it. That's the heater. That's the heater. It comes out. It's got to go somewhere. Hot water, it's red. Where does it go? Hot glycol, hot source. Where's it going to go? Well, it needs to go to my radiant floor system. That's just a loop. In, out. Nothing going on there. It comes out, and where do I want it to go? I want it to go to that air exchanger over there. So that's what this represents with a fan. It runs into the air exchanger, and I got a valve, and I got a valve so I can shut either or both of these off. If I close this one, I kill both. If I cut that one off, I'm just using my floor system. This might be useful. I think in the spring and fall, when I don't need a lot of heat, just want to take the chill off, my radiant floor system will be enough to heat my whole living space. This is for really cold weather. Now both of these systems have to loop back to this. This is a continuous circle, right? I told you that. How does it do that? Well, in this kit, you get this. Understand what this is. It's a holding tank. It's called header tank. It's not a recirculating system, okay? There are systems out there you can go buy from third-party other companies, van builders, that do a great job. They got a really cool system, and they tie more things in. It gets really complicated. They tie into the heating, cooling system, the cooling system in your van that feeds into their tank that heats the same system, so you don't have to run that in order to have hot water necessarily. You know, all kinds of cool stuff. And they put an electric heating element in, I think, in it too. So when you're in shore power, then we don't use any of that. We just use the electric heating element. Great stuff. I love it. It's awesome. I may upgrade and do some of that stuff at some point, but I don't need to right now. So this stuff all has to loop back. So these two kind of come back together, and we'll go through this little 16mm hose back here, and we'll loop into the header tank. That header tank then comes out and goes back into here. And how that comes out is that pump, right? So this sits between the tank and that heater, and it pumps it out of the tank into there. So there's always a source, and it stays primed. Excellent. Now, because I have a recirculating shower, I have to heat that water separate from my sink. This is my sink system, and we'll talk about this. Glycol comes in, glycol comes out. It comes in hot, comes out a little cooler. Why does it come out cooler? Because cold water goes in, circulates through this, and comes out hot. But this is crazy. What is all this stuff here? Well, this is a mixing valve. If you can see this knob, there's a T that comes with this kit, and this line takes fresh cold water and diverts it. So the water comes in and it diverts. It comes straight to the valve, and then it runs through here and comes out as hot water. So hot and cold feed that valve, and then this lets you control the temperature of that right to your sink. Sweet. And now still at your sink, if you wanted to, you know, you could just, now you could turn still hot and cold on if you had both of those and adjust it even some more. Or if you just wanted hot water, boom, you're pulling in one source and you're running through that. Obviously you have to have a pump on that loop. When you turn that faucet on, water has to pump through this. So yes, I have a pump for that, 3.5 gallon pump. 3.5 gallons per minute pump. Electric, 12 volt, RV pump, no big deal. They're not crazy. And they're all bottom out really close to each other, so great, that works. Heating the hot water for the shower, heating the water for the shower. Basically another one of these, but different. I don't do the mixing valve, and I bought a different system, different size, the whole thing, so you'll see that in the next segment of this video. But same thing, but in this case, instead of pumping fresh water out of my fresh water tank, which is what the source would be for this, I'm pumping out of a 7-gallon recirculating shower storage tank. So I fill this once from my fresh water tank over to here, and then I pump out of that and go through another heat exchanger, which just gets hot, again, hot liquid comes in here, the glycol, it comes out and goes into my next heat exchanger, which will be really close. And then that comes out and goes back into this tank and fills that tank. So I have two sources. I have this loop over here on my passenger side, radiant and air. I have that draining back in, and this water heating system draining back in, which is just from my sink, right? That glycol and that coming back into here. Two systems feeding that tank, two loops. One may be used at one time. Again, like the heat's not on in the summer, that's why there's valves here. So I only have it for hot water in the summer. And then in the winter I use both. Cool. And there's a whole filtering system and a whole thing going on here with the recirculating shower and how all that works, and I've got a little bit more of that to figure out, but I've got it kind of figured roughly into this plumbing. So that was pretty simple. Probably the challenge was figuring out where things kind of go. Oh, by the way, I just saw something I wanted to step back. I told you the fuel was pretty simple. You get a fuel pickup line. Don't need it. I have a Transit 2016. It's got a third port ready to go, built into it. I can just connect this line right into that, and I'm right out of the tank. So I don't have to put any holes in my tank and mount anything. I got a pickup line I don't need. Excellent. We got that. Makes sense. Two different water lines going through, you know, all part of the heating system. This is all heater hose, two different sizes. Large going out, small coming back in. Except coming back in is also 1 inch coming out of that. So some of this section's got to come from here to there. And then it's all weird. So I got that kind of like, I'm okay with it. I might have to pick up some more hose because I'm mounting further away than this thing allows for. Although I have plenty of the 16 mil hose. All right. I saved the best for the last. Okay, the electrical. I'm not all that electrical savvy. Kind of understand the basics, you know, probably like a lot of you. I'm okay. 12-volt system, safe, simple. I got it. I'm learning a ton because I learned a lot about solar and all that as well. Been studying. Everybody can learn. I love life. If you're not learning, you're not living. So I was learning. I'm still learning. So I dug out the wiring kit. And I started looking at stuff. And I'm like, what is this? It's not labeled. It's not even half assembled. Give you an example. There's two little green wires. See that plug? It's not on there when you get the kit. It's in a bag. I wasn't sure if that's the only, because there were other wires. Like, does this plug go to those wires or does it go somewhere else? I'll save you some time. This little plug goes to these two green wires. What do these feed? Not labeled. But because that plug was there and that was there on the, I figured it out, it's the fuel pump. It's got a nice long line so that you can run it all the way back to your fuel tank. Excellent. We'll do that. That was simple. Big chunk of this harness was simple because, hey, here's two plugs and we know they plug in right here, right into my heater. Awesome. And a third outlet coming out of here. What's that go to? I found a wire. Wasn't labeled. Had the ends on it though. That was awesome. And I said, hey, that fits there. I bet that goes there. Where's the other end go? Picked up this and said, oh, that fits. I bet that matches. It does. It's pretty short. What's that tell you? You could splice this wire, but I probably wouldn't do it. 3 wires just causes more problems. Don't mount this too far from that because that's all you got. Make sure when you mount this, you have a place for that based on a short wire. Otherwise, you'll be building a wire or modifying a wire harness. Great. Going down the line, I followed it through, come out to this loop, and I find this thing. This is actually, there we go. I find this. A fuse box. Got fuses. 2. Is this spot for a third one? Studying this, like, where's this white and red wire go? I follow it. Come to find out, it just ties into this black with red wire. This cap loops back into the harness and goes back to my here. I found it. There's a black with red striped wire right there. In this, it goes to my heater. All right. That's the long way to get power to it or something or whatever that is. I assume it's power because the other side of these 3 are all red. All right. Well, there's 3 wires, red, coming out into 1 black wire that's half-ass shrink wrapped. Heat that up, tighten up some more. So guess what? Battery positive. That's what that is. Not labeled. Labeled it. Huh. Well, wouldn't that make sense coming out of that harness? What would that be? It's got a grommet on the end, that came on. Probably battery negative. Yes, I found documentation. There's a manual. How do you get the manual, by the way? You go to their website, you gotta register, email, login, password. By the way, some passwords aren't accepted. That was weird for me, that it was a blacklisted word in my password. But in there is a wiring diagram that starts to lay things out and give you, and you can follow the colors, and they give you the color code, and you get to study that. And that's where I figured out, oh, coming out of this harness, that's where it is. I'm not adept at reading these things. This is not easy to read. It's probably not for most people, unless you went to school for that. These are fun, but I still was able to do it. So if I can do it, you can do it, because that's the saying. What is the saying from my favorite movie? What one man can do, so can another, right? Name the movie, somebody. Put it in the comments down below. It's one of my top favorite movies. Love it. Got to watch it again soon. Some of you know it. Some of you know that's one of my favorite movies, because you've been in some of my classes before. All right. I got that figured out. Then there was this pigtail that came off of here, and it just goes into this plug and it loops back in. It's got a jumper wire at the end, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's that for? Found it. CAN bus. They got a system for plugging into this for diagnostics or some other kind of weird way to control things in here, so control wires and stuff. Let's see what I can do with this in the future. Then there was this little plastic clip, and I saw in the directions, which again weren't easy to read, somewhere in here it showed putting this together. And this little plastic clip, they call it a plastic bottle. Sure. First time I read it, I thought that was kind of confusing, because I got a plastic bottle. That's not what they meant. You have to read very carefully and go, no, that's the wrong word. It's not of, it's or. That meant to say or, but they put an F in. And they didn't mean plastic bottle, they meant plastic clip. So that's just to mount it somewhere, and these mount together with this thing called these little little plastic split rivets. They got little pins, and they don't really hold there. Well, I'll zip tie it. Great. That's got to go somewhere near my bus bars in my electrical box, which is good because this has a long line from there to there and should go and reach all my electrical systems. So that's good. Following the wire down, I went to the other end. The end of the wire, end of the line. And there was a lot going on here. First thing I came across, it was confusing, and I had to set it aside, was like, these three wires. They do have the little pins on the end. That's nice, but no plug. Not labeled. I can't remember if this clip was on here or not. I don't think it was. I think I had to insert those, but the pins were on that as well. I can't remember. Couldn't figure out what it went to. But I didn't have a lot of options left. Looked at the colors. They matched 100%. They plug together now. That's it. Then I looked at this and said, well, what's that? Again, not labeled, people. Nothing's labeled. Read the manual. Temperature sensor. It's optional. I'm going to get it. All right. Solved. Back to this. Couldn't figure it out. Studying and studying. I'll come back to that. Oh, actually, I'll cut to the chase and save you the time, because this took me half the day to figure this one out. Manual says optional control device. Optional control device. Perplexed. What do they mean by optional? What control? What device? Control what? They don't tell you. Because in this kit, this came with it from Webasto. They're mixing the two companies together here. And I saw this plug on the back, and I read the manual for this, and like, wow, these matched up. This kind of works. Red, ground, and a control, yellow. Matched up. That kind of made sense. It's like, maybe that controls this, and then I couldn't figure out how you get to control to that, and so I'm not sure if this still might plug into this. I don't know. I'm going to find out. I don't think it does. I think it's not used. I think it's for something else, like maybe having 2 of these, different locations. I don't know. They don't tell you. Then I found this harness. Cool. 3 wires. Pretty beefy. Black and purple. Black, brown. I know what that is. It's a mounting block for a fuse. It came with a fuse. That I can figure out. Not labeled. Doesn't tell you what this is. Okay, it does. Anybody want to translate that for me? I know somebody that speaks Dutch. Made no sense. Won't even go there. All right. This control unit comes with a manual. I was reading through that. It's like, okay, shows you how these things go together. Oh, I need that piece of paper. Windy day. Pins not assembled, wiring not assembled. You have to put it together. Oh, this is really nice. Gets even better. They show you how to do that, how to put the wires in the pins, and they expect you to have this crimping tool. This is for professional installation, people. That's what you'll learn from this kit, not for me, or maybe you. But I think we can still do this. Still wasn't helpful. I did, by luck, contact Heatso. I said, really, you got any documentation? You put a kit together. Can you connect the dots for me with your kit? They sent me 3 or 4 pages. 1 document, that's it. And in that I found the last 2 pages. And in this second, 3rd page was 2 little paragraphs. Blower box switching options. Lower box. Heat exchanger, air heat exchanger. You can wire this up independently of everything else. This to that, independent, doesn't know this stuff exists. I got that. That's how this is designed. That's how this kit was intended to be installed. Option 2, there is a wire in the Espar kit, wiring harness, that if you connect it to pin 1, will control this unit from the master system. And what it basically does is it's an automatic blower control. It'll turn the blower on or off once there is heat. So once this wire comes from that harness and feeds this and says, okay, hey, I have enough heat now. Now you can start blowing air instead of blowing cold air. That makes sense. Okay, I want hot air. I don't want cold air blowing out, waiting for it to heat up. 5 minutes of cold air would suck. The wire, black with blue stripe. Found it. Found it. Aha! This has something to do with connecting to that. Now we start going down the rabbit hole of figuring out what the other 2 wires do. Well, there's documentation everywhere. You got to kind of read through everything to find it. There's a little bit in here that talks about this little wiring harness in here. Again, not easily understood, but I now know that this is going to pin 1, which is basically positive into this box, and there's the clip that you got to put the pins on. You got to put the pins on the wire, and then you got to put it in the clip, and then you got to plug the clip in. So, pin 1, positive. Here's a wire. Black. Figured it out. Pin 2, negative. Heavy gauge, pretty cool. So what is this? Brown wire. What does this go to? Well, what I figured out was it goes to this white with red stripe, or orange, whatever that color is. It's kind of orangey. That's what it goes to. You can take this tape off and connect these 2. That becomes a control signal, I guess, for the relay to trigger. When the relay triggers, boom, it turns on the power to the heater through this box. Got it. Now there's use for that. I thought it wasn't being used at all, and actually it may not be used if you choose not to do option 2. You had to get their documentation, you had to read it, and you had to figure it out, because it doesn't actually clearly just do what I just told you. Now this thing comes as a kit. This is the last part of this, and then I'm going to break and then come pick you up tomorrow. You're going to pick me up tomorrow when I start actually installing all of this. You get these 2 parts that came together to control that, whether you want it independent or not. Now this just has this big plug on the back. Weird, confusing. In the manual for that, they tell you how to wire this all up. Basically what I figured out is you have to make 2 wiring harnesses. You have to make one that plugs into the 4-pin here, and what you get is black, black ground, right? Red positive, which just pulled out, and a control wire. In their manual, it's yellow. For me, I had to use a green wire because that's what I had. I don't have yellow wire. So right, that goes there, and the other end goes into this. Hence, not this set, which matched. It's got to be this to control that. Got it. That's how you can regulate the fan speed. This. On, off, fan speed. So that feeds that, and then coming out of the other end of this, there's just 2 wires that go to the motor. You have to make another harness. Again, they give you the plug, they give you the clips, you got to put it all together, and then 2 wires go into that. Got the ground, it's black, there's 3 other colors. You tell me which one you would plug into. Negative is black. Then you got, what do you got? Orange, red, and yellow. High, medium, and low. So I think I'm going to just try it out. Can't hurt, plug it into either one of them, but probably high. So that this thing regulates the high speed down, I'm hoping. There you go. That took me a long time to figure out, because it is not labeled. People, label this stuff, will you? You're putting a kit, you're sending it to the US. We speak English here mostly. Translate your manuals, get them fixed. It's not rocket science. Hire somebody that speaks English, read through it, let them ask questions, fix it, and you're done. I've done this. I worked for a company. We sold software internationally. We hired local people to translate the documentation. Worked. They had great documentation. All right, there you go. That's a nightmare. This kit's all apart, but I now have everything labeled. I kind of now know where everything goes, where I'm going to place it in all my control boxes here. They go up high above my refrigerator. My heater goes below my refrigerator, which is this is going to be mounted. This is supposed to be short, by the way. This wiring harness from power, from the 2 side to that, is supposed to be a short distance, so I've got that really close together. So happy with that. I can now place everything, string the wires, and then when I'm all ready, I can just plug it all together and be done. That's next. For me, that's tomorrow.